welcome back to the Overflow Podcast. It's Pastor Justin. Good to have you with us on this. I guess it'll be Tuesday when we put this out. It's been so long since we've been together, guys. It feels like it's been a month, but it's only been like a week, I think. So what you guys been into?
I went out of town. I went to a music festival, and then I suffered the consequences of post-music festival. I had come down with some sickness from that, so no sleep, lots of sun. Yeah.
So, no sleep and lots of sun.
No sleep and a lot of sun, a lot of music.
So we were, we've wanted to do a Father's Day edition, so we're about a week late. We got a special guest, Mike Tate, with us. He's goes to church with us, but also he does a lot with sports, in our community, but also he's one of our life group leaders. And so, Mike, welcome to the podcast.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to come on with such righteous young men, as we found out earlier in our pre-conversations.
I don't know how righteous we are.
Two righteous young men and a grandfather time.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah, we were, so it's been a kind of a busy week. I had got to go out of town with the boys basketball team, Gate City, spoke to them a little bit, and then, of course, my son played in his big tournament this past weekend, so it was just a busy week. Of course, 316 soccer started this week. It's going on right now as we're recording the podcast, too. So it's just been a busy week. We get to go to Rock Hill. It's pretty interesting. First time we've been there. Amazing tournament. The boys.
Where's Rock Hill out?
Right outside of Charlotte.
Oh,
about 30 minutes south.
Carowinds.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Never
so it's like
either.
15 minutes. Yeah, it's. But anyway, it was a good tournament. Out of 33 seventh grade teams, we finished fourth. So I mean, it's pretty good. We didn't finish first, but we didn't finish last either. So.
Yeah.
But it was a great competition, and I don't usually get to go watch Braden play all the games, but I thought I'd take a week. You doing a good job from what I listened to.
Oh, goodness, just an honor to be able to sub for you, pinch hit for you while you're away. Enjoy
I didn't get
that.
to listen to Aaron, but he gave me his whole notes today. He said, "Here's what I said." I was like, "Well, I trust you. I mean, I think it's pretty good. I'm sure."
We enjoyed
I heard he had a good services.
I'm sure.
So that's good to hear. So, well, we wanted to do this podcast for Father's Day, but I think it's good to talk about fathers and. I'm privileged to be a father. Jeff, you're a father, and now you're a grandfather.
Yep, became a grandfather since we've recorded the last time.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
little grandbaby girl,
Congratulations.
grandbababy boy. So, thank you.
Yeah. So twins, girl and boy.
Mom and babies are doing well. Little boy, little girl. Little girl came in on at 10:19 a.m. 2 Wednesdays ago, and little boy followed her 2 minutes later, 10:21. So. But doing well, did not have to spend one moment in an NICU, which was a blessing, and got to come home 2 days later. I've actually got a picture on my phone that her daughter-in-law sent us today of the babies asleep in 2 different carriers, and you can see my son back in a dark corner with the mouth kind of gaping off to the side. I think he was it looked like more of a coma than a nap. But, it's been an adjustment, I'm sure.
Father's Day is not really a celebrated holiday much anymore. If you look at it, you've got Easter, Christmas is up there in the top, and then Mother's Day is up there pretty high. But I was looking on one poll, and Father's Day is like the 20th holiday. Like Halloween comes before Father's, and so I think it gives us a little bit of idea kind of what's a little bit wrong with our country, in our communities, because we need, father leadership. But, so my Father's Day, so what did y'all get for Father's Day? Did y'all get any gifts or anything? Did y'all family get you gifts?
I shared this with my life group yesterday, and this is funny because, and everybody knows this, and Bethel hears this, and everybody that was in my Sunday school class yesterday would hear this. So I sent Beth a little meme thing, and it's basically, my wife is the world's worst gift giver. I mean, my wife does not like to spend money, and I just, I've just come to learn that fact, that when it comes to that, I might as well just go out and buy it myself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she did try this year, and she puts about as much thought into it. I wish she spent as much time thinking about the gifts she gets me as she does lesson plans in her sleep during the summer, But it's just to your point, though, I do think that that's part of what's wrong with our country is that, not that my wife doesn't do a good job celebrating me, but the country and this world as a whole, a lot of the problems that we see with crime and we see with our society is because there's absent fathers in families. And so I do think that, not just for my benefit, but I think for a lot of people, fathers need to be, role models. They need to be examples. They need to be in the home, especially as Christian leaders and as leaders of the household. And it's important to have them step up and really be true spiritual leaders of the family. And that absence of true father role models can have a huge impact on somebody's life. And we see that in society today.
Well, you see it too, like a lot of times college athletes, of course, I love sports and stuff, but you see a lot of them, they don't have a father when they come to play for a coach, and they talk about how the coach becomes their father. They need that, male leadership role or male role model in their life to show them how to be a man, how to, work hard, how to treat a lady, all those things. And it's like Mike said, it's absent today. And, there's our world is so volatile on genders and all that and equality and all that. And I'm not saying that, men are better than women and women are better than men. I'm not saying that. But I think what we have to do as Christians is we have to look at, yes, we're all equal in the eyes of God, but we all have different roles. We have distinctive roles that, and when we function the way God designed us, that's when everything works, the way it's supposed to work.
Right.
Yeah.
You were interesting. You would mention about, coaches and fathers and things like that. And it's not a new statement at all, because Dr. Billy Graham years ago had alluded to this, and I think it was in connection to Fellowship of Christian Athletes, where he talked about the influence of a coach in the life of a young person. And what he was saying there, it actually is two messages. Number one, a coach does have a lot of influence in the life of a young person. I can still remember some of the things that Coach Vickers said, because he was a very quotable man, and he had a very creative way of making a point, and you would remember it. But I think what Dr. Graham was also saying is that coaches were being pushed, I guess you could say, into the role of being a surrogate father. That was that was the message that he wasn't saying, but it was certainly in between the lines there. Now we find out, as you just said, that coaches oftentimes are the father figure for a lot of young people like that.
Yeah.
And I think too, with in that coaching role, having coached so many kids, we just got out of baseball, and now we're getting ready to go into flag football, and then tackle football, and all those types of things. As a coach nowadays, you spend a lot of time with those kids, and if you can be a positive role model for Christ, we had the Jesus One tournament for our kids, and that was a big success. And just showing them that we want you to come out here and succeed. And I told the kids this. I said, I don't care if you go on to be Major League Baseball players. I don't care if you go on to be NFL football players. I want, at the end of the day, you be godly men, be upstanding people in your communities. And that would mean more to me than them seeing them sign $1 million contract. Obviously, I wouldn't want them to do that, but at the end of the day, to know that they are strong Christian men, and be community leaders. I think that's a role that we've lost a little bit too, being strong community leaders, being outreach for that.
Yeah. I think, what we're talking about here is, I think it's vitally important. There's a guy I listen to, in Alabama, have a podcast or a radio show, actually, Rick and Bubba. I don't know if you probably remember them, but Rick Burgess started this thing called Man Church. I've been really interested in it, and gathering men to be the Christian men that God, desires them to be the leaders. And that's, who God is looking for to step up and lead. That's what we're missing today. And you really think about church, and I even think about this about our church. All of us go, First Baptist Weber City, but I was thinking about this. We have ladies' conferences, ladies' retreats, things like that. We don't have a lot of things for men, and it's one of the things I really want to see us do, so we can focus on gathering in those guys. Because really, we used to say, well, if you can get the kids, you can get the family.
Yeah.
But if you get the man, you do get the family.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Because he's going to lead.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's the thing with the men too, though. It's a personality difference. A lot of men don't like going to those types of things because they don't want to open up.
Yeah.
They're afraid to share their feelings. They're
They are.
afraid to say. They're afraid in our world now to show vulnerability because vulnerability now is looked at as weakness.
Yep.
And so, and the world thinks that in order to be a strong person, you have to be tough and, like leather. And really, you have to be malleable.
Yeah.
You have to be able to be bent and like clay and molded because you're in a constant state of transition, whether that be from before fatherhood, after fatherhood, into, your marriage and everything. And so, men gathering that and having the right type of programs that are available for them is a huge thing. You have to touch what's on. You have to touch each person. It's like we were talking before the podcast. You have to approach each man differently.
You do. We tried, I can't say we tried, we actually did. We had a men's small group in the early fall, late summer last year. It was out of a book study written by Patrick Morley called How God Makes Men. Obviously, it was a men's group. The first couple of Wednesday nights that we met, and I kind of expected this. We were still new to the church at that time. I did know and was acquainted with a number of the guys in there. Some I have and was meeting for the first time. But to get that group, like you say, to open up, because men, they arm up when they think they're going to be put in a position where they're going to have to ooze a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't, they just don't do that. And only the Holy Spirit can disarm a group gathering to the point to where guys are able and willing to share what's really buried down deep. It ended up being an older member of our church that started attending. When he saw the book and kind of heard some of the topics, he came to me, I think, after the first meeting, and he said, I may be a little too old for this group. But what the Lord actually did through him was because he was just so brutally open and honest and very transparent, it just started spilling over into the rest. And one of the least outspoken members of that group would have, at the end of it all, been one of the more outspoken members of that focus group at that time. But it's not convenient. It doesn't come easy for men. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I'll capitalize on the fathers in our church and stuff, and being there. That was one of the main reasons, I really enjoyed coming to church, was just because I grew up without my dad. My parents got divorced when I was younger. Obviously, I still have a stepfather now, but in that transition period, I started coming to church, and I had Aaron and had Big Al at church, and they, I looked at them like father figures in youth group and stuff, and I still do to this day. And as I got older, there's more father figures in the church and stuff, including Mike, and that's here with us today, has always helped me out in every situation that a father, should. Kent Snap's a great example as well too, and they've opened up, and they're not afraid to open up. And Mike was talking about that. A lot of people aren't like vulnerable now, and they need to be able to be molded and stuff like clay, you said. And so it's nice whenever you do finally get to open up and you realize that there are other men involved in the church, that do want the same thing, and we do need to open up. I mean, the one time that you do it, it really helps you and stuff, because I like to be open. I know I was raised by my grandmother, my mom, my aunt, all them bunch of women. I got a lot of patience to me and stuff, but you got to open up and stuff. So
it's interesting. I think people would assume that if you're talking about men and you're talking about vulnerability and how all that can flesh itself out, you just assume that it would be outspoken people by nature who would be the ones to lead those groups. That's not necessarily the case. It's actually folks who are quiet by nature, who burrow things down a bit deeper than others, that if they're just willing to open up a bit, my goodness, how the Lord can take that into some places and really leave everybody taken aback.
Let me ask you guys this question. Let's talk a little bit about our background, maybe how about your relationship with your father, maybe I know Austin just kind of talked about his, but and two, how that kind of helps, you not just. I mean, I know you don't have kids yet, but hopefully you will one day, Austin. But I mean, for the rest of us, pros and cons, positive, negative, how it affects over into our parenting style now. So, whichever one you want to talk about it.
Goodness, I grew up in a traditional home. As such, my dad worked. Mom was able to stay home with both Julie and I. I mentioned this past Sunday, both my mom and dad were only children growing up. But I just so appreciated that, in that God had provided to the point that we were able to grow in that type of a home. My dad was very reserved. My mom was very outgoing. But in my dad, I had this picture of confidence. He just always struck me as being very capable. In his line of work, it was a suit and tie type of a job, and but Dad was measured in what he said, and I just had a feeling that if Dad ever spoke to me, whether he was correcting me or not, it was worthy of respecting him enough to listen to what he had to say. And I've said this before, the greatest one to whom I have ever become personally acquainted with was Jesus Christ through the leading of Holy Spirit. But the greatest man that I have ever known is my dad. Mm-hmm. And Dad's been in heaven for 7 years, and I still have many days where I miss my dad days. Mm. He was my go-to regarding questions out of the Bible. Dad taught the Bible for years, a couple of different churches, and his focus was experiencing God. That particular study, Dad led that for years and years at Thomas Village, and I had a great dad. Mm-hmm. I did.
I enjoyed how you talked yesterday, and you talked about how they met each other and stuff. That was a good comment yesterday in church.
I'm telling you, that scared me.
Yeah,
because like I said, my mom didn't do a whole lot to dispel the fact that she just jumped in the car with him and he couldn't get rid of her. I'm just thinking, lock your doors, son, going through town. Yeah. Well, that can happen.
Mike Tate.
Well, I had a completely opposite experience with my father. I think I've shared that before. Austin's probably heard, when I spoke in front of the church about kind of my relationship with my dad. My dad and I, and even with my brother, he was not the kind of father figure that I think that would be what you all would consider. Me and Beth have two different concepts that are our fathers, and Dad was an alcoholic, and Dad would say a lot of mean things to us, and so I dreaded on Friday afternoon. He'd come home, and if he had a 30-pack of beer, I knew it was going to be a long weekend. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I had the opposite experience. Dad would miss ball games. He wouldn't show up for things, say mean things, and be hurtful. He was never physically abusive, but there's things when you say with your tongue that will leave a mark long after it's gone. And mm-hmm. I always tell my boys, there's a reason why God gave you 2 rows of teeth and 2 set of lips to cover up your one tongue. I mm-hmm. said. So for me,
that's good. I think a lot of people need to hear that.
Yeah,
myself included.
That's a great anatomy lesson.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
But for me, for my parenting style, and I've told this before, that God really became my father. Mm-hmm. I had to rely on Him a lot, and I know I pulled up a verse thinking about it today. Knowing I was going to come here, and really, Deuteronomy 1:31 says, "The Lord your God carried you as a father carries his son." And so, for me, a lot of times the Lord carried me, mm-hmm. And the thing is like my parenting style has really adapted to that. I told my life group yesterday we are in a new Bible study. For those who are married in the church, we started this new Bible study called Marriage in Transition. And it's a Bible study that focuses on, hey, we all go through transitions in life. We all go through different things. And I was telling them yesterday that that transition from, okay, I can't rely on my Father anymore. I have to rely on my Heavenly Father to give mm-hmm. me the things that I need. And so I told them yesterday I learned to adapt my parenting style as a way to counteract what I grew up with. So, in people's background shapes what kind of father they are. You can either be a better example, or you can go the opposite way and be a worse example, or follow in the same footsteps. So, and that's a personal choice. And I think without God, it would have been very hard to make the positive choice.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
Because I didn't have that role model. But, you know, and I told them yesterday too, and I've told Beth this, and I'm sure I've told Jeff this, my father-in-law, that, you know, for the time in between that, you know, he's become a father to me. Like, you know, and he, you know, he's, you know, I know that's not the role he always envisioned, but realistically he has. And we've relied on him a lot, and he's always been at the forefront of that. And, you know, that's been very important to me.
Yeah.
And so for me, in my parenting style, I've really kind of had to adapt and say, what are the things that I didn't get? What do my boys need? And so I've counteracted that with that. So that's kind of really shaped my parenting and how I am. And that spills over into everything. Like, you know, I coach kids that they have either their dad's gone.
It probably gives you a better understanding of what kids go through. You know, like, I mean, my dad and mom, I mean, I was raised in a great Christian home. We weren't perfect by any stretch. But, you know, my dad was always in my ball games, always encouraged me anything that, you know, I wanted to do pretty much. I mean, we did. We were always faithful to church. I mean, we never missed. I mean, you know, if we had practice on Wednesday night, I mean, I was leaving early from practice. And, you know, I mean, that's the kind of, church was important. Jesus was important. My dad was a deacon. He was a choir leader, you know, all that. I remember his testimony and stuff of how he got saved. He's always been just that kind of vocal person. Anybody that knows him, he's very friendly, never meets a stranger. My mom on the other side is kind of quiet, but super smart. I think we all took Dad's side. I don't think we took her side, but I mean, but you know, they just celebrated 51 years of marriage yesterday. And so, you know, and they went through some struggles too. We've had some health issues they've had to go through with my mom. And then, of course, you know, and I guess one thing I've seen about my dad is his strong faith in God. Like when his sister was killed, his brother was killed back in 1991 on a horse. You know, it was on a Sunday morning. And he was right down there close to Oakland Baptist Church where we used to live, and he just saw him and then left and went to sing and then got the phone call. And I remember, you know, vividly those type of things, you know, and just watching my dad deal with heartbreak and heartache and, you know, watching his faith never waver, you know, and go through some things in life and, you know, been very faithful to the Lord. But, you know, I mean, he's always been there, you know, and I've tried to always do that for my kids. I don't like missing their games and trying to be there and stuff like that. And like you said, I think it's vitally important. But I think for you, probably those kids that, you know, come from rough home lives, and we have a ton of them. Yeah. I mean, where I work with the football team and stuff, I know we have some guys that, you know, go through some very difficult things. And I guess it gives you a little bit more of an advantage of dealing with them because you've been there.
Well, and I think, you know, Aaron always says everybody has a story. Yeah. And, you know, Beth's story and mine's different. Austin and my story are different. And so, you know, you can relate to other people that I can't relate to. And I can relate to people that you may never be able to touch because of situations. And so, you know, I know that there's people out there that I can tell my story to, and it'll resonate with them because it's a shared experience. And so I think as you know, you spoke about this about being a missionary, and part of being a missionary is sharing your story, and part of doing that is, again, getting back to that being vulnerable to say, hey, I did not have the best childhood. I did not have, you know, my mom was great. She did a lot of things, but, you know, I mean, I didn't speak to my dad for the last 6 years of his life, and then he passed away, and then I didn't have that chance of reconcilement. And, you know, but that was his choice, and, you know, that was tough. But today, I've taken that and said, okay, I'm going to try to be that from my boys, and it's kind of spilled into the coaching thing a little bit, like because and Beth will tell you, I'm not one of these people that is afraid to shoulder roll and be like, I'll cry at the drop of a hat. I'll tell, Austin knows that, I get emotional about things, especially when it comes to kids and things like that, because it's so vitally important that these kids know that they're loved.
Yes. And
know that they have a place to go or a shoulder to lean on or anything like that. So
yeah.
I don't take that coaching responsibility lightly. And again, I don't focus on the wins and losses. I focus on, did you come out being a better person?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's kind of always been my focus. But you're right that and it's sometimes it's great to have people who don't mirror you, and you talk to them, and you kind of resonates with you, because I tell Beth all the time, it's like, well, you didn't have that experience. So it's hard for people who don't have that experience to understand that kind of dynamic. And, I think more and more today we have people who were probably, in my scenario, more than we did in the past.
Yeah.
Just because, and if you look at our area, I mean, we're one of the poorest parts of the world. Not the world, but the country for us, and, the Appalachians. And, there's drug epidemics, and there's absent fathers. There's people, all out there, and it's just it can cause a lot of
it's not
scars.
just absent fathers, it's absent parents.
Yeah.
And I know you and Beth foster kids, which I think is very admirable for people to do that, because I actually worked, a couple of years ago with DSS, and I saw what most people in this community don't even know goes on. Yeah. And it is heartbreaking. I mean, it's stuff that I couldn't tell my wife. I mean, I wouldn't, because, she'd be a total wreck. Just things. So is that kind of, your background history, is that kind of played over into your all's desire to foster kids like you have? I know you've done it. I don't know how long you've done it, but I know you've done it quite a bit.
Yeah, we've, of course, our first set of foster kids came last, a little over a year ago, and we had them for a while, and then, that was, it was our first set, and we had 2 foster children in the house, and so that changed a lot of things, and then now we've got the foster girl that we have with us now, but I think part of me and Beth's journey with that was that we always said, like, if we had space, we would do it, because there's just so many kids that just need an opportunity. And, we always said that we would open our house if we could give our time and our commitment, and that we wouldn't do it if we couldn't do it full way. And I can't sit here and say it's been easy. Foster parenting is not easy.
No, I know it.
It takes a lot of commitment, and you have to be into it for the right reasons. Some people get into it because, it's extra income. I hate to say that, but that's sometimes the case. And I can tell you're not going to get rich doing it. We had a party for ours yesterday. She turns 1 tomorrow, and I spent more money than I'd like to admit of my own money, but at the same time, like, it's so rewarding, and it truly has to be a calling. And I think that if you have space in your house and you have a desire for those that are lost and that are, the least of these.
That's what I was thinking about that verse, because when we went to Honduras, Jimmy, when we go over there, we always go and see all these kids and stuff that need help, and he talks about the least of these, given to them. But then I think about, well, we have those people right here.
Oh yeah, they're here.
You don't have to go. You don't have to go overseas to see this. So, I think this is good. I tell you what I want to do. I want us to take a break, and then we'll do a part 2 of this, because I want to ask a couple more questions to Mike. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a part 2 of this. And so thank you for tuning in to part 1, and we'll put out part 2 in a day or 2 later. But again, thank you for being part of the podcast today with us and listening. And we will catch you in just a couple of days. We're going to do part 2 of this Father's Day edition. I think it'll be great. God bless you. Have a good rest of your week.